Oh, you wanna turn your screen a bit?
Yeah, it's done. Sorry about that.
No, no worries, no worries. Is you wanna make it like you wanna turn it?
Oh, no. All right,
Super.
we go.
Yep.
All right,
Looks good. Looks good.
it's good. Yes,
Okay, we have people joining us despite us being late by 5 minutes.
impressionably late today. Thank
Ironically, I just realized we've never actually been late for a live show, but for an online, for something online where it's right at our homes, we ended up 5 minutes late.
yeah, yeah. We are
Okay.
usually hours in advance when we play a show, right?
Correct. I mean, we're practically waiting for the whole thing to start.
We reach
And
the location before the sound guys usually.
correct. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, we have people joining us. Cool. We will wait for some more, otherwise we will get cursed for starting without people.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, we have like four people who joined us. Okay, shout out to y'all. You are the first to join in.
Yep.
I hope you went earlier than us, and if but yeah, I had like a few disasters with my camera deciding to become Humpty Dumpty. Cool. Okay, I think we kind of give this a bit of a start then.
Yeah.
Um, Great. So, to the three people coming in, and we're recording this, so those who watch later will also catch y'all. Thanks for joining in. We want to get this thing on the road. So, the reason we're starting or we decided to do this is because we felt that we really wanted to. It was about time that we spoke about what's been going on and what is to come. We suddenly dropped a bit of a bomb last year with the album, and we thought for once let's actually surprise people. But now, in hindsight, also we want to start making this a little more interactive and a little more fun than like what it used to be. So, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming in. We have a lot of fun stuff planned. Um, this is pretty much going to be about the album Meant to Be, which came out last year, and we're gonna talk about a few things that are planned currently and what's been going on, but how we came up with it, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Um,
So we
and
getting into the history of the band, like when we formed, and we'll talk about the evolution of our sound from the
correct,
days when it was more of a hard rock band to the electronic punk style genre that we play now.
correct, yep. And so, I mean, when we talk about where to where we've reached, right? We started out as individuals with such different backgrounds. I think yours was more heavy metal and progressive.
Yeah,
Mine was more blues, hard rock, rock and roll. Um, and I
with
kind
some,
of, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, and our drummer was totally it was all new metal and heavy metal and death metal. So our
yeah.
sound was such an amalgamation. I mean, it must have been. I wanted to actually. I've always been wanting to ask you. Uh, when we look at the way we used to make our songs, right? Given your background, at least, which was diverse with Victor Wooten and Lamb of God and all the other combinations it was. Back then, what was your thought process, or how were you going about making those bass lines?
So earlier, I was influenced heavily by metal. So I used to play a lot of 16th note style of grooves with fast note shifts and a lot of riffs. It's mainly a riff based style of play where like if you listen to most of the metal genres, you'll notice that the lead guitar and the bass are like putting a nice thick layer of low end and high end with the riffs. So that was the style of music we played back in the day, right? It was heavily riff based. There were very few chords around. So
Yep.
that's where even I came from when it came to writing music. Like all the bass lines I made were uh, were of that style, where I had to play really high paced grooves with a lot of. It's similar to how guitar is to the alternate picking, right? Like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely. And I remember when we started jamming first, when WTF first formed, um, to figure out that common ground, because each of us had our own direction on how we wanted to take the song, was a heck of a challenge. And I think we almost ended up saying, okay, fine, you take it in the direction you want to, I'll do the next song.
Yeah, so that's how if we ended up writing different songs sounding completely different. We had the hard rock sounding song, we had this extremely heavy metal sounding song, and we had this groove metal sounding song. We also added some prog in there with our technicality.
Correct. Correct. Yep. And I guess now it's such a fascinating thing when we look back, because I sometimes listen to some of our old demos as well. And it's quite, for me at least, quite interesting to see how we've managed to go from one place to another. So for a lot of people who asked, because I think when we first started out, we were more heavy metal or heavy hard rock. And then as things progressed, we started getting a little lighter but more groove based. And finally, we had, okay, see, I see someone has put Abhi sir, huge fan here. Just FYI, this is a very good friend of mine who's trolling me. So, but hey, man, Akshay, so happy to see you here. So, yeah, I mean, when we look at the way we've evolved our sound and the way we've gone about things, it's kind of fascinating because today our approach is the complete invert opposite of what we were doing. And not just by sound, but by the way we write the song.
Focused, right? It's more song focused rather than each of us trying to put our own individual elements into it and trying to make it work.
Correct.
And for example, like even if you check how the vocals were, like what you were singing at a much higher register and hitting really high notes. It was almost like 80s and 70s classic hard rock. Like you were hitting notes like that, right?
Correct.
But
exactly.
now it's more toned down to what the song really needs.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah, it's and I think one of those is definitely. I mean, when you look at the songs like 10 Shots High, which is changed so dramatically from what it used to be, especially that chorus, which I used to actually have a slightly tough time singing, especially live because of the number of words, right? Because I think it was we're 10 shots. It used to be like, we're 10 shots high now, and I'm in a tight spot. And right now I've flipped it to, just calling my name, we're playing this game. And it's a lot more toned down. And I,
The tempo of the songs has also changed over the years. It was
correct.
really fast earlier.
Correct.
Right?
And yep.
So
I also
back then that would even affect your vocals because you would have to fit all the words in.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember us joking about it a few times where we wrote down the number of words per line, and we were like, "What in the world were you trying to accomplish by singing so much? It was almost rap." So it's kind of unbelievable.
Sing at that pace, right? You can
Correct.
rap is more like it's like speech, right? You can't effectively hit notes when you're at that pace.
Correct. And to be honest, a lot of it had to do with my influence. So I'm heavily influenced by Nickelback. And if you listen to a Nickelback song, or you analyze the Nickelback style of songwriting, what you will see is that more than going with metaphors and comparisons, Nickelback is very in your face style of writing. You don't have to really do
Yeah.
research to figure out what they were talking about. It's very direct, and that's why I connected with it. The emotions were not put up, right? It is not over emote. There's not like it's not overdone. At the same time, it's still got the feel of the pain that the person's going through or the happiness that they're trying to
Yeah.
express. And I think that's something that I'm heavily influenced by, because I think that's one of my most influential bands, at least for me. So that's
Yeah.
definitely something that I think played a huge part. Even today, I think plays a huge part the way I write music.
Yeah. But I
Um,
think back in the day, probably our biggest influence was Guns N' Roses, I think.
in style of singing, yes. And I don't know
Even
why I was trying that.
also heavily influenced by them, right? Heavily influenced by Slash.
Correct. And I think guitar wise, so there was just something about his music that connected very, very well with me. Um, and especially his solo album. So while GNR is something that I was heavily into, it is Slash's solo stuff that really influenced me. Because his songwriting was a little more commercial, but his riff playing and his guitar work was brilliant. And his riffs were more the thing that pulled me in. In fact, I remember for many years, I used to actually warm up playing slower versions of his riffs. And then before the show, I used to just play a few of his songs at normal tempo, and that used to get me in the groove. So I think where the disconnect was is that uh, while I enjoyed playing that music, the question always loomed: is that really my style? Right? You can always like playing a kind of music, and you can always enjoy that, but is it really your style of playing? And I think that's a decision that
Yeah,
I had to take and accept.
that is what really changed a lot of things for me as well. Because I enjoyed playing metal, but it is not something that I enjoyed writing or making music uh, in the metal genre is not something which connected with me. Though I
Correct.
really enjoy the style of music, even for listening or playing, because it's nice, high energy music. Just that writing that kind of music, it didn't work for me.
Correct. Yeah. It's so fascinating to see. I mean, not just with us, right? You hear so many artists talking about, forget the glare, talking about being influenced by such different range of people, and yet it's totally different, right? When they're trying to make music. Um, and also, one thing that I think we definitely get asked about a lot is what we're putting in our lyrics. A lot of people ask us, what are you guys singing about? Because half the time I can't understand anything of you saying. Uh,
Yeah, that
so,
was definitely an issue earlier because of the general. Uh, I would actually call it musical chaos, which was part of a song earlier. Uh, we all were heavily focused on the instrumental aspect, and you were also trying to push out vocals at the high range. It was like everything turned to 11, like how Spinal Tap would say it, right?
yeah, I remember that. Because, and that's something we kind of broke down, I remember. And it had a lot to do with the change in direction of music. Um,
Yeah,
the, the more groovier something is, uh, and you're able to, and you're playing a finite number. So often people think that, hey, what we're playing is finite, but it's actually difficult to make a song. So let's say you're strumming continuously, right? You're going like, it's actually pretty difficult to make a line on that song because the instruments are playing the same thing, right? So it's all on the vocalist to come up with something. But when you're following groove, it makes it a lot more fun because one, you have to match what essentially in this case the bass player is playing,
yeah,
and at the same time you have to still bring in your flavor to the vocal element and not make it look like some keyboard is following the bass player. So That
Yeah.
was definitely something that was a lot of fun for me. Where I keep saying I'm now very used to that kind of rhythm section that is set at the background, where I'm following, or rather, I'm working completely around the main rhythm of the song, especially the bass line. And at the same time, I'm ensuring that it's still got its own individuality and not uh, sounding like some sort of a dual element. But that was a lot of fun making those songs and pushing myself every time there was a new group.
Yeah, and we actually ended up finding a unique sound. It was not like we were trying to sound like someone else.
Correct.
All our influences, uh, it's almost like we combined our individual influences and somehow made it work as a single genre.
Correct. That's right. Also, I guess another thing was taking feedback from what we thought of our recordings as well as what people always said about our songs. Where they were
Yeah,
like, yeah, I think you have a decent voice, but, or some of them was, of course, did not think I had a decent voice. But they basically, the criticism was that your voice is like, but what you're saying is unintelligible and sometimes not matching what the instruments are doing. And
yeah, that's definitely an issue because what we noticed was what you were saying was completely lost in the wall of sound generated from the instruments, whether it's drums, bass, or it's guitars or whatever it is. Was what you
correct,
were saying was fully drowned out, and even the tempo of the songs, right? It was almost like you could not speak clearly or sing clearly.
correct, correct. And
It,
it
it,
was difficult.
it's like an entire bunch of syllables.
Correct. Yeah. I think some of those lines we still, I mean, it's almost like I've written 3 or 4 songs in one song. That's the amount of content that was there in some of those
Yeah.
songs. I remember.
In fact, in one of the songs, we took the verse and we made 2 verses out of that. Then we scrapped the second verse.
Correct. Yep. We aligned it with the groove and we made 2 verses out of one of those songs. Uh,
Yeah,
Crazy. And also, I think one of the major shifts that we had when it came to this album was our entire philosophy on how the song was, right? If you'd remember, before our songs were a bunch of sections that were just clubbed together.
yeah,
Um, but this time we decided we would go with one group for the song and at the most have offshoots. But basically stick it to a centralized theme.
yeah.
I think the
So that even people who are not uh, musicians can appreciate it. What we were playing earlier was more targeted towards musicians. Like, see
correct,
this wonderful musical technique I'm doing, or see how fast I'm playing. So it was
correct.
literally that what we were doing earlier, right?
Correct. Yeah. Though I have to be very vocal, be a little open. I don't think I was doing too many things too technically. While the vocals were challenging, I think I was more on power chord theory, which was mostly because of influence from hard rock, where you're just trying to surround every groove and every element of the song with power chords, and make it sound a lot bigger, which was just not making sense and working out in the long run. And I think the number of reality checks we got when we were trying to record these songs is when we realized, oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah, because when you're playing live or in a practice session, I mean, somehow we miss things, right? But only when things are recorded and you layer it together, you see that
Correct.
certain sections that just don't make sense.
Correct. That's true. That's true. And I think when it came to uh, ensuring that it was groove centric, uh, it was such a discovery for us to try and learn how to go offshoot, learn not to make too many changes to what's already working out well.
Yeah,
But more importantly, I remember for me, my biggest challenge when you look at what do you call following the groove for our kind of music is to ensure that I'm preserving the intent of the song and not trying to just match you for the sake of it, or not adding too much value.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that was something that was a big difference in direction from what we had been doing. Um, and you mentioned something interesting there on making music that only musicians seem to understand, which I think is a big problem, because when you initially start, I think you only look at it from your own eyes, which is the eyes of a musician. You don't realize
Yeah.
that.
Look at it more like, especially if you're an instrumentalist, right? You think about what I can do with my instrument. How can I put it in the song to make it sound cool?
Correct.
So that is the objective rather than trying to play for the song.
Correct. That's
Like,
right.
it's all about what the song needs. You can just
Correct.
play a couple of notes through the song, and if it works, it's great. But if you're playing 20 notes and it doesn't work, it's a bad idea to put that in the song.
Correct. Yep. And I think for us overall, that was tending to be a problem. I mean, I think the very fact that we kept on saying, okay, fine, we don't know what to do after this, let's throw in a solo, or let's throw in some
Yeah.
sort of another section. That in itself should have, I mean, back then, of course, our musical maturity wouldn't have been as much, but in today, when
Yeah.
we have the opportunity to look back, we're like, yeah, that was probably an indicator that the song was probably good as it is. We didn't need more.
Yeah, that was actually something we used to do a lot, right? If you're not sure what to do, we were just picking either put a guitar solo or a bass solo or a drum solo.
Correct. And the one thing that I also realized a lot of people might have noticed, because those at least who've been following us, they do know that, at least for the way I play guitar, a lot of people know from my posts, the songs I cover as well, that I tend to lean towards hard rock and hard rock music. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people were a bit surprised that we chose a different approach, where the guitar was playing the support role, coming in wherever required, and then pulling back. And that's something that we'd spoken about, because we realized that there was no need for a predominant guitar line or a heavy guitar line that's surrounded. Rather, let's make it a part of the music that creates what it is.
Yeah, we became very groove centric, right? So it was all about the beat and how the bass interacted with it to create the background for the song and
Correct.
create a good layer as a foundation to build everything.
Correct. That's right. And I think there were a few people pleasantly surprised for once I did not use distortion in my songs. I think it is the first time I've ever released music without using distortion.
Yeah, that's something else. Yeah.
And oddly
Yeah,
enough, something I fell in love with.
we had a lot of changes, right? Like, you started using more of the effects such as chorus and maybe some envelopes.
Correct.
I started using more of the auto bars. Earlier, I used to have these. I used to run drive pedal and distortion too, because it's the metal concept, right? You want to create a thick sound with the guitars at
Correct.
top of the frequency spectrum and the bass at the bottom, both of them driving a distorted sound. So, yeah, that kind of approach is what we had earlier.
Correct. Correct.
And frankly, the changes which we have made, while I'm okay with distortion in certain genres and it sounds good, but what we were doing overall, like for example, I was playing a lot of slap bass, and you were singing clean lines and playing melodies. Those distortion effects were not really working for us, right? For all of
Correct.
that.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe a bit of overdrive here and there, it's fine. But for the most part, I think the clean sound is what we need as far as guitar and bass is concerned.
Correct. That's right. And also another thing that I think was a difference was the way solos were written. Not too many solos across the songs. In fact, we don't even call them solos anymore. We call them melody sections because that's pretty much what it is. Uh, it's just a section that is influenced by a tune, and we can't really say that's a solo, but fits in with the group. So
Like
songs like I think
rhythmic, and it's very. It's not really note based, right? It's pattern based.
correct. That's right. Which brings us to the big question in the room that we got from at least everyone who had heard our music before. What happened with drums? Why did we choose the route that we chose? Why did we decide to go with electronic drums, which is a shift, a monumental shift from hard rock to electronic,
Yep.
and that's something that was, I remember, such a pain point for us because we basically lost both our drummers, and or rather, our second drummer, and one sure we did not want that those set of recordings to be just what they were. We wanted, because it was
Yep.
our debut sound, right? We've never released music, and we wanted whatever we released as the first album to be the precursor to the next. And I mean, I never forget the number of times. So for those watching, I used to, I think, finish work or before work, go over to Govind's place, and we used to try and figure out what we're going to do with these songs. He'd have the
Yeah.
bass in his hand, I'd have the guitar in my hand, and we'd have no idea what to do because we were stuck. And eventually, we realized that the best decision forward for both our strengths, because I think "Meant to Be," which was our first song, we'd written it, but it was, I think, again we were trying to do something similar to what we were doing before.
Yeah. It was a hard rock style song,
Correct.
the distortion, and yeah, and also the vocals were again in the previous style where there were a lot of words over there trying to like all jammed in into to the song at a higher tempo also, if I remember correctly.
Correct. That's right. And it was quite, I remember, quite a dilemma. And then on a quite random, what do you call, selection, we said, hey, why not? Let's do something uh, quote unquote
Yeah,
outrageous.
started out as just an experiment, right?
Correct.
We
And
just
oddly enough,
programmed some beats on Ableton and played bass, and then you brought your guitar, and we were like, okay, this sounds good. And we realized that with the simplified version, it allowed your vocals also to shine. Because back in the
correct,
day when everything was loud and there was too much happening, your vocals were also lost.
correct. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely simplified things and also spoke a lot to some of my influences. So I also listened to a lot of pop music, was
Yeah,
influenced by a lot of pop music, at least earlier on. And this is something that I think came out. And both of us are big Michael Jackson fans and Jackson 5 fans.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. The old school soul and pop songs, right? From the
correct,
70s, the 90s.
correct, exactly. And I remember I remember initially when we came out with the beat and we listened to the song, it sounded nothing like what we've ever done. And the both of us were so skeptical. We said, let's take 2 weeks to just listen to this and
Yeah.
then decide if we are comfortable with this or not.
It was like a complete U-turn, right? From what we are
Correct,
doing.
correct. And
Just like,
strangely, once we said, yeah, this is the thing, we just went in that direction. We never looked back.
yeah,
It was never, I think after that first week where we were like, let's wait and watch, we've never ever questioned our approach as to how we're doing things.
yeah, because somehow it just fell in place. After we tried with Meant to Be, we slowly tried to do the same thing with our existing songs, which were written and we were not sure what to do with. And it all just fell in place. It was like we found the magic formula to to finish all those songs. And
Correct.
when it happened, I remember we were so relieved, right? Because we really didn't know what we were doing. just okay, I don't know how long you guys have been following us, but Wild Things Federation has been a band from 2011. This was when Abhimanyu, myself, and our first drummer Venkat, we were all in final year of engineering. So all these years of work, and we were really not sure what was happening. And yeah, it was really satisfying to see that we started working musically.
Correct. Yep. And I mean, a lot of people also ask us with regards to the way we've written, because there is, yes, the electronic element to it, but there is, aside from that, we've not really added too many effects. Uh, there's no synth, there's no what do you call, background music generator, there's no auto tune. So yes, I mean, I'm pretty sure anyone who's heard our music knows there's no auto tune, because there's quite a few times where if you listen closely, you'll know that he sung it a little differently. But that's kind of that's kind of also a result of my influences, because when you are influenced by certain singers, like when you look at Nickelback, you look at even Guns N' Roses for that matter, one of the beautiful aspects of the way they sang and the way they went about music was their ability to not align with the correct pitch, but not sound out of pitch. Right, and I think that's something that you were, I mean, telling me once that Victor Wooten also was talking about Kale.
Having control over the situation, right? If you can control and slightly deviate from it, you can make it musical. But if you're not able to hit the right pitch, that's when it's a problem.
Correct. Correct. And I think that's that difference, right? Hitting the right pitch and just singing along with what's happening. And a lot of, I think, the old school singers mastered that art, where they're not just singing it like a wave, right? Where it's just going like a surfboard. The surfboard is just going on the wave of pitch. Instead, they're playing around with it, and it's not sounding out of pitch, but you know they're not hitting the same notes.
Yeah, it's all about building a vocal style, which comes from years of practice, right?
True. And so let's also talk about another thing we were asked, whether our influences have changed, right? A lot of people asking us whether we still listen to the same music. I'll never forget when the album came out, somebody even asked me, so does this mean you're not coming to rock music anymore, rock concerts anymore? I said,
Oh yeah, I've heard that too. I heard a few guys say that now that you're releasing this kind of music, I can't see you at metal shows anymore.
Yeah, so just to lay that to rest, pun intended, we are still huge fans of heavy metal. I think we'll all be metalheads till we are done. So
Definitely.
there's no way that's changing at all. But we did want. I mean, I think in terms of realizing that this music was working, we did have to expand our scope of influence too. Like I never heard of artists like Zed. I wasn't listening too much to Jamiroquai either before. I wasn't listening to basically a lot of trap music, which turns out to be most of what I listen to today. And not necessarily for the lyrical content, for obvious reasons, but more for their way of structuring grooves, to see what's coming up with what next. There's new techniques to learn, new flavors that everyone's bringing in. So that's definitely something that we're looking at.
So lately we're focusing actually more on the songwriting aspect than being flashy with our instruments.
Correct. Yeah. And I think for us, especially given that we had to make such a change, it was important for us to understand what people in the industry in that genre were doing. Otherwise, it's very difficult to really do much.
Yeah, most of the songs, if you see any kind of popular music, they're not very complicated. They don't have these crazy time signature shifts, and they don't have scale shifts. It's very simple and straightforward, but it's very well written and structured. So that is the kind of approach we were also going for.
Correct. That's right. And I think it's also a function where when you look at artists in general, I think people need to, I mean, in general, right? People need to be completely aware of what your contemporaries are doing. I
Yeah,
think that's often missed out. I think it's very underrated that people don't actually listen to other artists' music, and it's sad because there's a lot to learn from it. There's a lot of brilliant artists out there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
I truly believe that you know you can learn from any artist, whichever genre it is, at any point of time. Uh,
correct,
Earlier, I used to when I was seriously into metal, I used to not like genres which were not close to metal. I was this hardcore metalhead. I didn't really
correct,
understand a lot of things, but over time, as I grew as a musician, I've also started to understand a lot of these things better. And I think you also went through a similar phase, right? I think you could not listen to progressive music earlier, but you're slowly getting into it.
correct. Yeah, progressive music was definitely something that was alien to me, and I don't think I was just too appreciative of it for whatever reason. And that's something that kind of recently I started opening my eyes, where I was like, yeah, I actually really like this. And also has to do with the fact that I think a lot of commercial music tends to have this verse chorus solo mentality.
Yeah,
And you almost, I mean, it's so bizarre. You're almost in anticipation. I mean, usually, how do you think about music? Right? You don't want it to end. But I think when you listen to so much commercial music, you're actually anticipating that end. You're like, why is the song not ending? Hence, I don't like it. And I think that's a mentality that comes in without you realizing sometimes.
yeah. Especially with progressive music, right? It's like usually like they're narrating a story, or it has a very strong theme behind it.
Correct.
It's
Exactly.
it's not a simple theme, so it requires a lot of listening to it. You mostly will not understand a progressive song the first time you listen to it.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, and
Um,
most of them are used. Most of the listeners, at least, are used to like picking up on catchy things in the song, like a certain melody or a phrase, and like hooking on to it. But yeah, obviously, that genre is very different.
correct. Um, so one of the other things that I think people spoke to us about, and we are very grateful for, is that we made a friend on Fiverr.
Yeah,
Who played a, I mean, I huge shout out to him. I don't know if he's even watching this, but I hope he does eventually. But his name is Dan, and
yeah,
it was a pleasure working with him. He's brilliant. He's
yeah.
someone who basically makes it master.
He was exceptional.
Correct. Yep. It was, and I think we learned a lot as well. Someone who was so open to talking about what he was doing to achieve the sound that he was achieving made us learn quite a bit.
Yeah, and it was almost like he was a producer, though he just worked with us for a couple of days per track, and that was mainly the mixing process.
Correct.
So yeah, what he did with the stem files that we gave him was just amazing.
Correct. And I remember one of the things that I think I was very, very flushed about and felt was a huge compliment was every time we gave him a rough mix to kind of tell him this is what we are looking at, um, he used to actually tell us, hey, actually, your mix sounds not too bad. It's a good mix. Um, and especially for some of the songs where we were like, hey, isn't it a bit raw? But he appreciated what we were trying to do and actually understood that there were things that were uncontrollable from our end, which is why it was sounding a bit raw, and was able to appreciate what we were at least trying to do. And that was a huge compliment I felt for us because
Yeah, and
we were just
I
finding our
think
way.
yeah, he could also understand the kind of sound we wanted, and that really, yeah,
Correct,
whatever simple mix we made, we didn't work a lot with VSTs, and we didn't do too much with that. Right?
correct.
We just
That's
adjusted a
right.
bit of EQ and maybe added some compression. That's all we did.
Correct. And I'll never
I
I never forget.
to make it work. from the simple mix that we gave him.
Correct. And we went through a process, didn't we? When he would send us the track, we would get on a call. First, we would listen to it. Then we would get on a call. We would say, hey, this is what I identified. You would give that list. I would give a list. We'd say, okay, fine. Then we'd go listen to it, see if there's anything we missed out, take each other's feedback, and then write out to Dan and say, hey, this is what we want changed. And I think then Dan would go and work on it and then come back to us sometimes in record time. So it was so easy.
Yeah, he was just amazing. The first album, we owe a lot of the way it sounds to him. Though we recorded everything, he really made it sound the way it sounds.
Correct. And also emphasizes, right, how important this aspect of music production is. That you need to have your mixing and mastering engineer completely in sync with you, but also very musically sound, or it will be impossible for you to sail that boat.
Yep, definitely.
So I guess that also brings us to the question I'm sorry. Yeah, that brings us to the question of what we've been doing for the past 6 months or the past year. How COVID has impacted us. I mean, I hate talking about COVID anymore. I'm fed up. Every conversation with someone seems to have that word in it. But have to talk about it because that's our life.
Just want to move forward, right?
Exactly. We all said 2020 didn't happen, and then 2021 turned out to be worse. Now we're all saying 2021 doesn't happen, but then we're scared about what's going to happen next year. So I think for us, especially, it was doubly difficult because we had finished working on all the songs about 2 weeks before COVID happened. And we were planning on releases, we were planning on live shows, we were looking at venues. It was all there, and we had so much that was already in the works for the future songs, if you'll remember.
Yeah, I remember correctly. I think the first practice session we wanted to have after recording the songs was when it really took off. Like 3 days before that, the cases started rising in our city.
Correct.
We just had to call it off from there. Yeah, when we released the last set of songs, that is the Meant to Be set, we were really hoping to play some shows at the end of releasing it, but so far that has not happened.
Correct. And it's kind of, and COVID impacted us personally as well, right? Because so on my side, I have people at home who cannot afford at any point of time to get this because so my mom has respiratory issues, my father has a whole conundrum of illnesses, which when it was very imperative that we took all steps possible to make sure there was no problem. And you faced several personal challenges as well on that front.
Yeah, I have similar issues here with parents having health problems, so I can't really step out for the fear of bringing the coronavirus home.
Correct. Yep. And I'll never forget. I mean, it was quite demotivating at one point when we finished the promotion for the album, finished everything, and then we realized, okay, we've really got to just move past what we wanted to do because it's not going to happen anytime soon. No shows, and I think this was before the second variant itself.
It's disappointing because like between the first wave and the second wave of COVID in our city, I think the trend was similar all over the country between the first wave and the second wave. There were actually shows happening.
Yeah.
In many parts of the city, and we just couldn't go because of our personal situation. So that just added to our frustration.
Correct. It was sad, but it was a decision that we took, and we realized we had to take it.
Yeah, and I feel we took the right decision, right? For that, maybe we wait for some time, but it was a responsible decision to take.
Correct. And it's hit us. I mean, it kind of broke the momentum, but I don't think it broke what we were trying to accomplish because while we while it definitely, and it still does kind of sting a bit that we couldn't play shows, I think very quick, we didn't really have too much of a gap between saying, okay, fine, that happened. Now let's look forward.
Yeah, and in fact, we since I think since a couple of months after the release of Meant to Be, we have started working on our next set of songs. Also, we've been recording,
Correct.
even though we are not in the same place. We have
Correct.
not been next to each other for almost 2 years right now. But we are still writing songs, and yeah, it's really possible only because of the technological advancements which are there here today.
Correct. Correct. I think ironically, I've spent more time in meetings with WTF than I've ever had throughout any job I've had. Because and especially in the last 2 years,
I would agree with that as well. Yeah, it's like
it's
almost a call every day, right? Yeah.
correct, correct, and but that's what it's taken. And uh,
Sorry about that. I just had to shout out.
hey man, thanks for joining. And yeah, I think it's. I mean, that kind of brings us to also that what we've been up to for these past few months. I think especially the past 4 to 5 months, where we've looked at what's next for us, how we're going to go about it, and what we've been doing. Because a lot of people ask, "Hey, no news, long time no see.
Yeah,
Are you
you're
going to go
uploading
to
new
honeymoon?"
songs. Is there new material out? Are you putting music videos out
Correct.
and all of that?
So, yeah, I guess to break the ice on that, the answer is yes. We have been working on new songs.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. We do plan on putting material out. Fact is, we've got I think almost 7 to 9 songs. In fact, possibly 10 in another couple of weeks that will be ready and good to go. Fact of the matter is, we've also got these songs done. As in, these will be released. They're good to go.
Yeah. The production work
And
is over, most of them.
correct. And so that's kind of what we've been up to. Hey, Abhi, nice to see you after a long time. Thank you so much, Sam. Sam is someone, a close friend of mine that where we met 7 years ago, and he tolerated me till today. And also Sam is one of the people that likes the song 10 Shots High. So Govind, he's one of the people I was telling you about.
Okay. Hi Sam. Hope to meet you someday after this COVID crisis is over.
Um, and someone is, sir, what is this? Who's Po? Po is Arko, no?
Hi Arko, how's it going?
Arko, right? Huh? So, yep. That kind of brings us to, I guess, one of the what so it answers what we've been up to, as in we've been making songs, we've been um, getting the work done, and while things are going on here, very sober things going on, bro. But
The only thing so we are consuming is like probably chai these days.
but yeah, so I guess huge announcement would be the fact that we are going to be dropping more songs, and we're not just saying that for the sake of saying, hey, yeah, we're dropping. No, it's so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be releasing songs over the next few weeks.
Yep.
We've got our first song that's coming up in the next 3 days. So on Wednesday, you'll get the first song coming up. We decided that we're not going to wait for album titles and putting it into themes.
Yeah.
But definitely are going to be released as singles.
Yep.
And release merchandise 100%. It is in
Yeah,
the work.
I think that will happen once the scene opens up and we can play shows more.
Yeah. So we want a little more traction on it. But that being said, since I think Orko is our first requester on merchandise. We will have to do something special. So I'm going to get back on that.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, one thing is clearly happening in Govind's house. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, something happened to my internet, and when I reconnected, it went to the back camera.
Hey, Orko is now telling us, Orko is showing off. Orko, we know you've gone to like the land of rock and roll. It does not mean that you have to rub that into our faces.
Yeah.
So, yeah, proud to say that we've got new music coming up. And
Leave T Nagar and move to OMR. T Nagar is good, man. A lot of the great food, great street food and eating restaurants are here. Why would I go to OMR?
confess. There's only one reason why you will never leave T Nagar. Confess.
Yeah, I like this place called Balaji Bhavan. I can't leave that place.
One more place.
Express too. Amazing pizza.
Yeah, I don't think, and I also don't want Govind to leave. The satisfaction and joy of meeting Govind is only equal to the satisfaction and joy of both of us going to Chef Express or Balaji Bhavan after that.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing like music followed by a good session of food. Balaji Bhavan, yeah, it's veg, man. Idli,
Your point being, Orko, your point being. But yeah, so cool. So that's the big announcement. We have a song coming up on Wednesday. We have subsequent releases as well. That's going to happen every week. And
probably on the Wednesday we will be pushing new songs out. That's the plan as of now.
Correct. And oh, he wants an encore of. Don't forget. Yeah, that we will not forget as well when the times when we played that song.
Yeah.
We should
Really remember that. What happened in one of the shows, right? The New Year Eve concert.
Oh yes, that's probably one of our wildest shows till date.
Yeah.
It was 2012 to 13, right? That was the New Year.
Yeah, I think so. No, it was 11 to 12, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay, one of the years, and
12 to 13, yeah, you're right. 12 to 13.
and I think we played. So I think we wanted the and Phoenix. Yeah, I think though, you know what? Ironically, while the 12 to 13 show was complete chaos in a good way, and not so good after that, but at least while the show was going on in a good way, it was what was that? I think we had 6 bouncers, 3 of them who were not even allocated bouncers, who were trying to prevent people from jumping on stage.
Yeah.
One of them catching someone, throwing them back, dancing, and then catching someone again, throwing them back and dancing.
It was just crazy because the way people were dancing and jumping around, we were afraid of our equipment. We paid like thousands of rupees to get our pedals and processors and guitars and basses, and we didn't want this to happen to that. And also the sound guys had also brought their equipment, which is also probably even more expensive than the equipment we had.
Correct.
So it was crazy.
Correct. And fun fact, Orko, since you asked about this, fun fact about that gig was I remember Govind had taken almost an hour to set his tone using one of those MXR pedals, where he wanted to get it absolutely nailed down to the dot and was doing it for every song. And I think in the middle of our second song, there's this person who was in a not so streamlined state who somehow escaped the bouncers, jump on stage, tries to do a full split, realized halfway through the full split that he couldn't do the full split, and so does a different kind of a split. And his leg goes and hammers Govind's pedal, and I think flipped all the settings to something else. And my first reaction was shock, because I didn't realize because I was like, hey, what's going on? But then it was just pure laughter because I saw Govind's expression and how pissed off he was.
Yeah, but I was grateful that he actually stamped the MXR pedal because that looked like a tank. So
Correct.
all that happened was a few knobs got turned and the pedal was switched off. So that was easy to change. Yeah, but
Correct.
it was definitely a shock.
Yep. And I think Phoenix was the first time we actually moved around while playing Don't Forget, at least from my side.
Yeah, there
Um,
was actually space over there, right? Because an open, it's
Correct.
like an open rather than inside a pub.
Correct. And so, fun fact is, one of my mom's friends was in that concert, and apparently, during whenever they met the next time, they had some feedback session where she apparently asked mom, "Is it true that your son dances now? I heard he danced in Phoenix." And my mom's like, "Okay, I thought this guy was just playing music. What happened?" And I think the first question from my parents was, one, did you dance? And two, were you drunk? And I don't think they were convinced with both the answers I gave them.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun times on that. I mean, this all kind of really makes me miss playing shows.
Yeah, we really want to get back to playing shows, whether it's big shows, small shows, whatever it is.
Correct. I mean, anything. Uh, I think this is one of those things where sometimes we even tell people, hey, if you have a venue, we'll just play. We'll work out the easiest deal possible for us and we'll just play because it's something we really miss connecting with the audience that way. Um, but yeah, hopefully soon we are working out some equations and we hope things will get better.
Yeah, until then, of course, we have our song releases, which everyone can enjoy. We're also really looking to getting feedback from you guys.
And let us know what
Uh,
you think.
the songs, especially, has been produced by us. Like even the mastering, everything has been done by us,
Yep.
and the recording was back and forth, like in at our homes, where I would record something here and send it to Abhi. He would record something and send it back to me, and I would put them together and make a mix and then send it back to me. He'll add vocals to that. So that's how our process was in these last few months.
Correct.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, but going forward, I think it will become a lot easier for us because we have worked in this environment with COVID and sending files back and forth.
Correct. Yeah, recording at home was an experience on its own. We don't want to let go of too many of the fun secrets that we had and what all we had to deal with while recording. But
Home, so it's a very noisy environment, and you had to record your vocals with a sensitive microphone.
yeah, that was pretty interesting to say the least because while recording vocals several times in my house, I was highly dependent on uh, the diplomacy amongst the birds near my area, which was so annoying. Imagine recording a song and you're listening to it and you realize, oh God, there's a crow.
So there on a regular basis, right?
Correct. And something or the other would happen. I remember I had to stop recording once because there was a dog fight on the road, and I had to wait for almost an hour and a half for it to get sorted out. Uh, it is so bizarre what has happened, and I couldn't believe I was actually waiting. And the only thing awkward was, what do I tell Govind? I mean, he's going to ask. He's waiting for the record. And he's kind of trying to get that done. And what do I tell him? I can't. I'm delayed because of a bunch of dogs fighting on the road. And I think the only thing that saved me was there are times when we have been on call and those animal sounds were still happening at the back. So he was like, "Oh, there's really a problem happening."
I think in one or two of the of the vocal recordings you sent me, where you're not singing, there are a few crow caws and pigeon sounds over there. So I had to edit those out.
It was unbelievable. So there were times where I had to only record during the evening. But then if I'm increasing pitch or if I'm going a little heavy on vocals, I can't then scream and shout or well, the animals would then take over my room because I'd be asked to go. So it was fairly challenging, but it was fun. I mean, I think this is the stuff that you will not get to experience in a studio. So while it is easier in a studio, it's not as fun.
Yeah, this was definitely fun. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, it's been such an experience, right? Going through COVID as a musician.
Correct. And that feeling of not knowing whether you'll ever get back on stage again, right? We do not know what the new normal for musicians is. It's a complete uncertainty.
Your friends right now. You hear the crows.
I know they're still on and on. In fact, so that's why I moved to the hall. I thought, okay, my room, definitely I'm going to have interruptions. If I come to the hall, at least I'm fairly confident that there won't be a problem. And the second I put my laptop and set up a bit, I heard 2 calls. I said, come on, how are you guys everywhere? Can't you just stick to the AC?
It's like they're following you around the house.
Yeah, man. It's terrible. But yeah, it is what it is. We are technically in their environment. So
Yeah.
we are the ones who invaded their space. So we have to put up with it.
Basically. So yeah, I think we have spoken a lot about what we wanted to talk about today.
Correct. Yeah, it was great getting to talk about this because one, there are a lot of questions that people had: why, what, when, where, how. But at the same time, I think we also wanted to speak because we don't have live shows anymore where we'd be able to explain or talk to people on how the song came about. So we thought let's do this and give people a sense of what we were thinking about, how we felt, and obviously drop the news about what's to come.
We were hoping that this pandemic wouldn't be so extended, and maybe we would start interacting with people like in a few months. But it's been over a year now, so we thought, yeah, I think it's about time we just start having these interactions on a regular basis. Like we need to keep up with the times.
Correct. True. Okay, I think that kind of does it for this session. Big thanks to everyone who joined. I know there are people who joined and dropped off as well, but thanks so much for being part of this. And we will do our best to try and make sure some sort of a copy is kept for this online so that in case you missed anything, you can have a look at it.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, happy weekend and please be safe. Please ensure you're taking care of yourselves. Govind and I.
Family, be responsible.
Be responsible. Make responsible choices.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, and great. And let's catch you guys again. Let's catch you all again sometime soon.
See you guys. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.